Giggling Granny, the Lonely Hearts Killer, Black Widow. These are all the nicknames the infamous Nannie Doss earned. When her fifth husband was found dead in arsenic poisoning, the police began to feel uneasy, and soon they realized that Nannie Doss was one of America's most cold-blooded serial killers. No one was safe from the Giggling Granny, not even her own family. Let's dive into the story about one of the most dangerous serial killer. It was in mid-October 1954, and the police in the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, were alerted to the local hospital. A man named Samuel Doss had recently died, and one of the doctors suspected that the death was not caused by natural causes. Doss was a healthy and respected preacher in the city, but the middle-aged man had suddenly become ill with severe flu symptoms a month earlier. The doctor who treated him suspected that he had been poisoned, but he couldn't prove anything. Samuel Doss recovered after several weeks in the hospital. When Doss suddenly died on 12th of October, just a week after he was declared healthy and sent home, the doctor persuaded the mourning wife to have an autopsy on him. The autopsy showed up that Samuel Doss had high levels of arsenic in his bloodstream. 48-year-old Nannie Doss didn't seem like the person that would be able to hurt a fly. She even smiled and laughed happily when the police came and interrogated her. The investigation revealed that shortly before her husband's death, she had taken out 2 life insurances on him. When the police continued to investigate, they found out that Samuel Doss was not Nannie's first husband, but the 5th. Several of her partners before also died prematurely, and it wasn't just her husbands who had been hurt. When the police started tracing backwards in Nannie Doss's life, it was as if everyone in her presence, whether it was her sister, her mother-in-law, or even her own children and grandchildren, were all in danger. The police interrogated her again, and to their surprise she now admitted not only the murder of Samuel Doss, whom she had killed by serving poisoned plum cake, but a total of 4 of her husbands. "I was looking for the perfect partner, the real romance of life," she said to the stunned police. Nannie Doss kept laughing and giggling in all the interrogations with her. Soon her name appeared in newspapers all over the United States as more victims became known. One of the country's strangest serial killers, the Giggling Granny. Nannie Doss was a name that in a short time people started to associate with evil and sudden death. But as a little girl, Nannie had gone under the name Nancy Hazel and had a seemingly normal childhood until something tragic happened when she was 7 years old. She was born in 1905 as one of 5 children of Jim and Louisa Hazel, a poor farming couple in Blue Mountain, Alabama. The children were expected to be at home and work on the family's small farm, which led to Nancy and her siblings only going sporadically to school and getting undereducated. Her dad Jim was strict and tough, but the Hazel family was no different than other families in the area. However, in 1912, something happened that came to affect their daughter Nancy for the rest of her life. The family was on a train when the locomotive driver unexpectedly made a fast break. Nancy Hazel hit her head on a piece of metal on the seat in front of her and was then plagued by severe headaches and depressions. Later in life, she would blame this accident for everything she did. At the age of 16, Nannie married a man named Charlie Braggs. The marriage seemed to be happy at first, and the couple had 4 daughters in a short time. But Charlie's mother insisted on staying with them, which led to lots of fights between Nannie and her mother-in-law. Both Nannie and Charlie drank too much, and he could often disappear several days in a row. In 1927, the young family suffered an unimaginable tragedy. 2 of the daughters suddenly fell ill and died, apparently without any warning. Food poisoning was suspected, but the police chose not to investigate the deaths further. Shortly after, Charlie Braggs took his eldest daughter, Melvina, and left Nannie alone with the newborn daughter, Florine. Throughout her whole life, Nannie Doss loved to read the relationship columns of the newspapers and was constantly looking for new men to marry. That is why she later on got the nickname, the Lonely Hearts Killer, in the media. She found her second husband in the newspapers. Frank Harrelson was a violent alcoholic from Jacksonville. Nannie was constantly fighting with him. Despite this, the marriage lasted for 16 years, before Harrelson was suddenly found dead in 1945. Nannie would later admit that she mixed rat poison with Harrelson's alcohol. But at that time, the police suspected nothing and dismissed the death as natural. Appropriately for her, that Nannie had taken out a life insurance policy on her husband, and it gave her a large sum of money. The eldest daughter, Melvina, had at this point been able to marry and have children herself, but two of them died mysteriously at a young age. One girl was found lifeless shortly after birth, and Melvina herself, who was loopy because of the painkillers, would later claim that she saw her mother stick a sharp hair needle in the head of her newborn grandson. But she didn't alert the police, and the death of the little child was not properly investigated. Another of Melvina's children, a 2-year-old son named Robert, died while he was at home with his grandmother Nannie. The boy had died of suffocation, but the doctors could not determine how this happened. Therefore, this death was also counted as a natural death, and Nannie, who had taken out a life insurance on her own grandson, earned again a big sum of money. The heartless murders continued over the years to come. Nannie found a third husband, Arlie Lanning, through a newspaper ad, and when he died after a short marriage, it looked like a heart attack. Again, it was Nannie who had poisoned him, but she was not satisfied by it, and shortly after, she also murdered Arlie's old mother the same way. In the early 1950s, Nannie visited her sister Dovie at her home. Dovie was sick, so when she was found dead in her bed shortly after Nannie's visit, everyone thought it was natural causes. The same thing was thought when Nannie's mother Louisa visited her in January 1953, and died after a few days. No one could imagine that Nannie would be so heartless that she murdered both her mother and her sister. The fourth man who had the misfortune of marrying the Giggling Granny was named Richard Morton. Unlike the other men, he did not have problems with alcohol, but he was unfaithful, so she poisoned him and he passed away in May 1953. He flirted with other women, and that made me crazy, Nannie later explained during the police interrogation. Just a few weeks after the death of her fourth husband, Nannie stood again at the altar, this time with the preacher Samuel Doss. And how it went for him we already know, but unlike all the other poor victims that Nannie had murdered, Samuel at least got justice. The murder of Samuel Doss was the only crime she was tried for, and a unanimous jury sentenced Nannie Doss to life imprisonment in May 1955. In total, Nannie Doss admitted 8 murders, 4 of her former husbands, her mother, sister Dovie, mother-in-law, and her newborn grandson Robert. She denied that she had murdered her 2 young daughters and the newborn grandson whom she allegedly killed with a hair needle, even though the authorities suspected that she was also guilty of their death. Nannie Doss died of leukemia in the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in 1965. She was 59 at the time. Thank you for watching.